hit the button before
hit the button
before this thing kicks us. StreamYard sort of gives you like you have to hit the button after the time for a certain period, or they just cancel the whole thing. So,
I gotcha.
They put the pressure on.
Do you guys get a lot of people who are following live, or is it more after the fact, or mixed?
We've got a regular crowd.
Yeah,
Monday nights, and then
the regular crew.
Cool.
A lot of people listen after the fact, but
yeah,
we got a steady crowd.
There's about 20 people, 25 people that are consistently in the live chat every Monday night. Sometimes more, sometimes less. Yeah, it's always a wild group chat.
Cool, man.
And they're all here now.
Yeah, the lights on.
We're live. I see the little red box. We're going.
Gillen's
We're doing
here.
it.
Jeff Frederick, Billy Jenkins, Robert. Some of the usual suspects.
Boys in the South, boys in the North. Freaking Canadians.
Well, here we are. It's Monday night. This is episode 194 of Snakes and Stogies.
Which is crazy, man.
It's a lot of hours.
I actually was prepping the Instagram story for this evening, and I was like, man, what are we going to do for 200? So we'll commiserate on something.
Do something cool. I don't know.
I got no ideas for you guys. Sorry.
We never do either. It always happens where we're like some sort of milestone episode comes up and we're like, yeah, we got to do something cool, and then it rolls around and we don't ever do anything.
Well, I think we finished planning this that this was even happening about an hour and a half ago, so that makes sense.
Yep. That's how we roll, man.
I was telling him, I was like, getting everything ready and sort of putting some orders together to ship out tomorrow for Fulvius, and then I was like, wait a second. I was like, we didn't have anybody lined up, and I was like, we did, and I'm like, wait, it's Monday, and I was like, son of a bitch. I had to message him. I was like, we're still good for tonight, yeah.
Yeah, of course, we're good.
Yeah,
sure.
It's been first time live listener, super hyped to finally catch one. Thank you.
Nice, awesome.
Welcome.
To see that.
Yeah. So episode 194 brought to you by Fulvius Apparel, fulviusapparel.com. Check it out. Use the code THN at checkout. Get 15% off your order. That is the exclusive promo code for THN listeners and viewers like you. Jason's got that new Cyclura shirt on there. I sent him some goodies. Sent him a
repping the blue
care package.
I like it. I figured it was it kind of hit the rhino and it's a blue iguana at the same time.
Yeah. It wasn't even intentional. I actually didn't even think about that. I was like, it's so hard to find colors because there's a lot of colors that those shirts come in that as far as like what I can print on. But I just I don't like that color. And I'm like, there's no way there's people out there that are going to want to wear that. And so like the sapphire one, I actually do like, but I'm like, are people really going to want that color and wear it? So
yeah.
We're kind of putting it out there as a tester. I know a lot of people are like wanting to get away from the all black all the time kind of thing. So I do try to offer some.
That's most like Reptile shirts. You go to an event, it's always black or maybe if you're lucky white. And now everybody's doing that jersey material. And I'm not a super big fan of those ones, but people are liking them these days.
And Smitty, are you wearing the Pecos, Texas shirt?
About shirt. That's right.
Let's see that. Let's see that, baby.
So
look at that.
It's just Texas. So,
love it. Love
the design that I was working on a couple weeks ago, and then today I was like, I think it might be time to dust that bad boy off and see how it prints, and it turned out good. So
you have all your own printing stuff, right?
Yeah, that's what I do for work. Is I work at a print shop that does custom apparel and stuff. So
that's pretty rad.
It's pretty convenient.
So does that mean you're having to buy like 100 of these shirts at a time?
Nope.
No, you're doing one off?
No, they're print on demand right now. Like when people place an order, like unless some of them I have just stragglers of different sizes on hand for whatever.
Do you have all the shirts that you have colors of? Do you have like the actual shirt itself and then you print
most of the time, but sometimes I got to order them and then it'll, it delays the order by a day or two until it gets there and then I can print it. But other than that, I mean, I'm in a perfect position to be able to do the Fulvius thing and it be non-invasive for everybody. So
that's cool. I had a while back. What's that shop called? Printful or whatever?
Yep.
I had done some printing. Addie had done some designs, and I had printed myself up some shirts on there. And their printing was so inconsistent. Like,
yeah, that's kind of the
some
issue.
of them would crumble.
Yeah.
And the prices were crazy high because of they're just, I feel like even the wholesale they're making a ton on. So it's just.
Yeah. Well, with the drop shippers and stuff like that too, it's tough because basically those orders, when they get placed by people buying the shirts, are going to sort of get randomly shot to whatever their affiliate printers are. So the consistency, that's where that issue is you have different printers printing the same thing from, wherever. And so you're going to get inconsistencies there. And then the price wise, it's like the printer has to get a cut, Printful has to get a cut, and you get a little bit, whatever's left. Yeah. And so then obviously the price gets jacked up that way too. So,
well, and I already ran these through the wash, and the print on them stayed super nice, and I was super impressed by that. Yeah. And the shirt stayed nice. I was like, dang, these are good. So well done, sir.
Thank you. It took me a while to figure that out. Like, we weren't curing them long enough for a while. And so I had a couple, like, I'd bring them home and I'd have some that washed and they'd fade a little bit. And then I had some that washed and they'd be fine. Finally figured out that I needed to press and cure them for twice as long as I was before. And that graphic stays pristine pretty much, because I have some now. Yeah. Like, I do wash tests on all the time to make sure that stuff stays looking like that, because I'm like super paranoid about the quality and stuff of the print itself. And that curing process is definitely upping that has fixed a lot of it. So
my Bitis Africa shirt, I wear that at least once a week since you gave it to me. And however many times I've washed it, the neck is starting to get like the bacon neck.
In the bacon?
It's getting the bacon, but the actual print itself is exactly the same as when I got it.
See, I haven't had the bacon neck on any of mine yet either, but I don't know. Maybe
I actually really like the neck on this one too, because a lot of them they're like,
yeah,
I can't breathe in them, and these ones they're good. Yeah, overall, good shirts.
Thank you. Well,
in case anybody was wondering,
I've got the Subok design is going to go up on the website here soon, and then I had some people suggest some designs for some other stuff that I really liked that I'm probably going to put together. So be on the lookout for those. Obviously, I'll post them and stuff like that when it happens. I'm going to do those mugs. Those mugs are supposed to be delivered tomorrow, the mouse mugs.
Sweet.
Those are awesome.
Yeah. That was Chris at Copperhead Reptilia was the one who was like, I need a mug that says what I'm using it for. That way no one knows. I'm like, I don't know why I didn't think about that, but
the stock graphics that came with it of like dunking the donut in and stuff was awesome.
I was like, let me find the worst ones of these. that very
oh, and it had the kid using it.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you, Jeff.
If someone wants to purchase the Trans-Pecos Texas t-shirt and get a Subocularis hat, are the hats available as well?
I have one hat for sale right now.
Oh, get it while it's hot, kids.
But my embroiderer at the moment is low on jobs, so this week I may take advantage of that and have her crank out a few of them for me.
Excellent.
Those I do have to do sort of in batches, just because typically she's busy and I don't like to throw hats at her in the middle of other jobs, with the actual like job work.
Yeah.
So when it's slow like this, I'll sneak in, 5 at a time or whatever and be like, knock these out whenever you get a chance. And now we can do them on the front though. It doesn't have to be on the side. It can be like this chondro hat where it's just on the front. We got that new machine that can get through that seam.
Heck yeah.
Because that seems tough, but
that's something I would have never thought of.
Yeah,
they need to even think about that.
Yeah, and it's just the structured ones like this and what Phil's wearing. They got that panel inside. It's like a sheet of cardboard or something. And some of those embroidery machines really struggle to get through that, and especially that seam in the middle where it's twice as thick. So trade secret stuff.
Rock and roll.
Yeah, so fullfaceapparel.com, check it out. BlackBoxCages.com. You need a rack, you need a cage, hit them up. Tax time is here. Go spend some of that money with BlackBoxCages.com. Use the code THN at checkout as well with them. Get 10% off your order. Our buddy Mark Curry ordered some cubes, and he was like, dude, it was like the prices were phenomenal. He was really happy with the prices. He's like, I got 2 cubes with the lights, with locks, and he got some other stuff, the cord protector for the heat panels, like all this stuff, and it was all sub $1,000 shipped and everything. So he was ecstatic about that. So
yeah, man.
I told him, I was like, you're not going to be disappointed. You know, he asked me about them and some other brands and stuff that I haven't bought from, but I was like, I'm biased, but you won't be disappointed. You know, whether they were a sponsor or not, we'd still wholeheartedly say that their stuff is top notch. So
1000%, man.
Check that out. Cold-blooded caffeine, best coffee on the market. Look at that right there, Snakes and Stogies blend. Mexican Rwandan. It's delicious. It's nutritious.
It's delicious.
Get you some. Coldbloodedcaffeine.com. And then Puget Sound Pythons, last but not least. The fine folks of the Pacific Northwest. Give them a follow. Stay in the loop with what they're doing. I think they had some females that look like they were on the right track to dropping some eggs. Some I think I saw some water pythons.
Nice.
Some other odds and ends they've been randomly throwing in the group chat. So give them a follow. Stay in the loop.
Excellent.
We're here. Again, it is Monday. This week we are joined by Jason Reiter. Down a fellow Floridian to represent Phil's people.
Yeah. So, how close are we to each other? Where are you at?
I'm down in Boca Raton. So I'm about 3.5 hours from you.
You got a bit of a drive.
Yeah.
You got a lot of fun stuff down there.
Yeah, a fair bit. I'll tell you what, though, this is the worst year of snowbirds I think I've ever experienced.
I think it's the greatest migration.
It is the greatest migration ever. And like what used to take me 20 minutes to go anywhere now takes me 40. It's crazy.
So, that's the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hate driving anywhere this time of year.
Yeah. So do you live in Tampa proper or are you like outside?
No, I'm in Brandon. So
okay, cool. That's where
Billy
about
Hunt 25 minutes.
Billy Hunt.
Yeah, Billy Hunt. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice down here.
Uwabami reptiles.
Yeah.
If you've scoured that across your local people.
I don't I got to get out more.
Yeah. Same.
That's good, man. Brandon's a nice area. I like that.
It is.
It is pretty nice. It's about 25 minutes from the zoo if you take the expressway. The nice part is that expressway is right here.
Yeah.
If you don't take that, man, oh my gosh, I hate I-4. That's like the death trap of America right there.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what part of I-4 you're on. It's just miserable.
Somebody crashes every time you're going anywhere. It's just, you can't count on there being no traffic unless you're out on the road at 5 a.m. or coming back at night after 9. That's the only time it's not jammed up.
Well, it's crazy. Like we just said how our good friend Billy lives in Brandon, and my GPS always says like 3 hours, 25 minutes or 3 hours and 20 minutes, sometimes 3 hours and 40, depending on traffic. Every time something happens, if I take Highway 60, a helicopter landed. If I take I-4, there's a jackknife tanker trailer. Like it never fails, you know. But like, it is a good area. I like that.
You got to get that private jet and fly it everywhere.
Yeah, not quite yet.
Seaplane.
Yeah, well, seaplane, dude, that would be awesome, man.
Landed in the swamps.
There you go.
Landed
Surely
in the bay.
Some of the ponds in these residential neighborhoods are big enough to land one of those bad boys.
Dude, the lake in my backyard is big enough.
I'm not even sure. How far do you need to land one?
Well, you need like,
I don't know.
What, 50, 75 yards?
No, you probably need more than that.
You're going.
I think you need more than that.
I bet you need quite some distance to get up enough speed to actually take off.
Yeah, because think about it. You got all that drag on the water.
I'd be more worried about that than landing, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably easier to land or crash or whatever you do.
Falling with style.
You'll stop.
Yeah, right. Oh, man.
Well, this episode, we figured we'd talk about some Cyclura and some crocodilians, since that seems to be the focus of Jason and his projects. But sort of get into some background information for context. I mean, how did you get to where you are currently? And your day job is like officially zoo related. Is that
correct? So I am currently my status is a senior animal care professional with reptiles and amphibians at Zoo Tampa. So I'm taking care of all the venomous snakes, the amphibians, crocodilians, and now we got those really awesome baby Komodos over there. So that's pretty awesome. I'm not over there a whole lot. I used to be full-time all the time, and then having kids, I needed to cut back, and they were willing to work with me. So I still get to go in. I'm only going in a couple times a week, but I get to keep doing that, and I get to be with my family a lot more. So it's pretty awesome.
That's great, man. That's great.
So you background wise, I went to Augustana College in the Quad Cities, got a degree in biology, biochemistry. Then after school, started working at a mom and pop pet shop. It was 2008. So I think you guys know that was the recession at that point. So it was kind of hard. Moved back home. Was with my family for a while. I have an identical twin brother. And I started working at that shop. He eventually started working there with me. And then I met my now wife, and we ended up moving to St. Louis together. And she worked at Grant's Farm in St. Louis with their elephant program. And I got a job at the St. Louis Zoo working with their stingrays and sharks through living exhibits. So I was doing stingrays and sharks at St. Louis first. And as some of you may know, they've got a really rocking herp house up there. So that was pretty cool.
You work with Justin Eldon?
I went to Crocs school with him too.
Hey, awesome. Man, that's one of my favorite people.
He's such a nice guy, and he's always out and about, man. He's all over the place. He's always at every international herp symposium, and he's always got a ton going on. I actually knew him when I was there. He was a keeper, because now he's moved up. He's one of the head guys over there now. But him and his buddy, now I can't remember his name. After hours, I had him come to Stingray with me. We all went snorkeling in the stingray habitat with all the stingrays and sharks. So it was super fun. And then a couple years later, I met up with him at the Crocs school. So that was super cool, out at St. Augustine Alligator Farm. So after working with the stingrays and sharks there, my wife wanted to move. So I said, let's move somewhere warm. So she applied to Zoo Tampa, which was Lowry Park Zoo at the time, for anybody who's been around that long. She started on their elephant team as a keeper. And then I got a job at Busch Gardens as a seasonal with their bird reptile team. So that's kind of when I first started being around venomous and being around Crocs and stuff. So they have slender snouts and American alligators that we worked with when I was on the team. And then they had, I didn't get to handle them, but I was around all their, they had some pretty cool stuff. They had like gaboons, eyelash vipers, and I think you guys, snakes and stogies, you guys, when you're around venomous the first couple times, it's a weird experience that first time. There's no real glass between you and and a snake. And so just to have that that first few months of getting comfortable by just being there while they're doing all the stuff made it a super good transition. When I jumped to Zoo Tampa, I was right at the end of the seasonal job. They had an opening at Zoo Tampa, and I got a job there on their, it was herps and aquatics then, but it was the herp side.
Excellent.
And so I've been working with them since. So was 2015 that I started at.
Oh, wow.
At Zoo Tampa. So it's been a few years.
Do you, this may have been after you were at Busch, but do you remember a giant, I don't want to say giant, a giant tiger retic that was in, I think, the roller coaster exhibit or whatever?
Are you talking about the one, over at I know they added something in Cobra's Curse because they pulled all the hots from there. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So our good friends Matt and Jamie, they used to keep large constrictors, and they had the last snake they had before the state squeezed them out for large constrictors was a massive, like 15-foot tiger retic.
No pun intended.
Yeah, and they no pun intended. And they donated it to Bush, and they put it on exhibit with like all this like ancient Egyptian stuff, which is totally contrary, but it's I guess the cue line for the roller coaster.
Okay, so that was Cobra's Curse, and so they had Jameson's Mambas, Rhino Viper. Oh shit, what else? They had a whole swearing on this. Are you guys
yeah,
does it matter?
You're good.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
sorry.
you're fine.
I'm like, oh, we're live.
You're good.
They had all this awesome stuff, but then they wanted to cut back on having to keep all that anti-venom there.
Yeah.
So instead of they're a publicly traded company. So when they start doing all the dollars and cents of it, I mean, I can't say exactly how the decision came about, but I know they all left, and now, they had like a Dumeral's bow in there for a while, and it's not quite the same. It's cool, but it's not. Yeah, it's not the same.
Not the same. So, what venomous are you guys keeping to the zoo now?
Florida stuff.
Only Florida.
So we got
the
Florida natives, and that's because of the whole. We don't have a herp house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything there is in the Florida section, and pretty soon that's actually going to be rebuilt. So we'll see what ends up happening. The long-term vision includes Florida venomous. I don't know if there'll be an expansion to other herps, but I mean, we've got you got your cane breaks or timbers, whatever you want to call them.
This is the cane break house.
This is a house of cane break.
This is an Atracadatus house.
Yes.
We don't allow that split around here. We don't acknowledge that. I love that. Everything is like, we're gonna split, now we're gonna bring it back together. Then we're gonna split, then we're gonna bring it back together. It depends on whose taxonomy you want to go with too.
Man, Summers and the Thigh Master. It's just back and forth.
Yep.
So we got those. We got some beautiful Eastern Diamondbacks that were actually bred at Jacksonville. Those guys are super pretty. They're not full size yet. But man, young rattlesnakes, that color is so beautiful on them. Pygmies, coral, copperhead, cottonmouth, that kind of stuff.
Cool. Excellent.
So it's fun stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we've got a lot of the non-venomous too. We've got we're working with the SAFE program for Eastern indigos, working on breeding them. No offspring yet, but dang, we've been giving it our all on them. We've had some really good locks over the years, and we've had egg binding, unfortunately, happen, and that's hard when it's so close.
Yeah.
But we're doing everything we can. Do you guys have Disney Plus?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen it on there, but there's the Secrets of the Zoo Tampa show.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out.
So that we're all on there. We're doing stuff with everything, and venomous. My buddy getting trained. He's been at the zoo for about 5 years now, but some of his venomous training where he had to get checked off on using tubes, they happened to catch some of that. And I don't know, man, that adds another level to it when you have somebody staring at you filming for a national TV show while you're trying to focus on a venomous snake and to get it to go into a tube safely.
Oh yeah.
That's
pretty cool.
I never found that to be an issue for me as far as like ignoring whatever else is going on around me, except, the Atrox or whatever it is I'm dealing with.
That's awesome.
Well,
so it's been very easy for me to be like, whatever's happening, I don't care. Like, this thing's out. Like, I don't care about anything else. Like, it doesn't.
And that's how you stay safe, man. And also, you don't free handle, right?
That's it.
Hell no.
I saw that on the instructions.
Yeah, on the wash instructions, Phil. I don't know if you've seen that. It says, "Do not use bleach." And
can you read that?
What does this say?
Do not free handle.
Nice.
Do not use bleach and free handle in the do not section.
I caught that and I started
great.
laughing. I was like, because I had started my washer. I was washing them and it said, and I went, oh shoot, it said turn them inside out. So I quick turned it off and then I started it back up and I came back and read the rest and I was like, oh, do not free handle. That's really good advice.
That's awesome. I had no idea you put that in there. That's great.
I'm in the process of getting some actual. I'm going to do like actual business card size things, inserts instead of the staples.
Well, that's a fun little Easter egg you slipped in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought people would appreciate it. I thought it was
hell
fun.
Yeah, that's great.
I hate free handlers. I hate that shit.
Yeah, man, dirty free handlers.
Drives me crazy.
I'm probably the only one who's ever going to read that, though. I don't think anybody else reads directions.
This is true. Is there anywhere in Florida in particular, but I guess anywhere else that's doing anything with those long-tailed king snakes?
Not that I know of.
No, man, and that's like talking to KJ and Preston, man. Like that's their passion. That's their
Dude,
their
every
goal.
time I see pictures of those things,
I know.
How freaking cool would it be to see those in the wild?
I know them and mole kings, man. And I feel like they're gonna go extinct, and no one's gonna know.
Probably.
You know. So
I'm hoping we paved over one day.
Hopefully we see some moles when we go up to Francis Marion in like April.
Nice.
Don't you guys like wonder that, like how many species we didn't know were even there, like are gone already? You know what I mean? Like,
well, I think about that, but I also think about how many animals are doing fantastic on private land that no one knows about, because especially down like south of the lake, like Collier County and even parts of Dade and Broward and Monroe, there is so much private land. And I'm not talking Indian reservations. I'm not talking about state parks, actual private land. Like I think the Collier family, the family that the county's named after, has like 243 million acres that's just for cattle. And like, there's not cows everywhere, but they have it there when or if they want to use it. And there's diamondbacks, there's indigos, there's all kinds of stuff there, but no one gets to check on it because it's private. But at the same time, no one's hurting them because it's private.
Because it's private, yeah.
So that I think about that stuff more. You know, like mole kings in Dade County are basically extirpated, but there's so much agriculture land that is in temporary use or seasonal use. There's got to be mole kings down there. Just no one's allowed to go look for them.
Yeah, man, you just need that magic wand that lets you know where they are.
Yeah, well, you just got to be friends with farmers, you know, let them know that you're not going to trash their property. And
there was a surprising amount of people in the South Carolina Snake ID group that were posting mole kings that were more like upstate, sort of in the Columbia area. Like last year, like a freakish number, and I mean, we're talking like less than 10, but still way more than I've ever seen people posting about them. And I think we're supposed to get them here on the coast. Honestly, I don't think they're here. I've never seen a DOR. I've never had anyone send me a picture saying, what is this? Like, I'm fairly convinced we don't have moles this far down the line. Yeah. Up near Charleston and stuff and Francis Marion and whatnot, it seems to be like they're much more of a possibility, but I don't know. Those longtails though, like I didn't even know those things existed up until a couple years ago. When I think maybe you or someone else had posted in the group about them. Yeah. Those things are wild though. It's just a bummer that they're just completely overlooked and no one, no one's really doing anything with them.
And when we were in North Florida back in September with KJ, we were in prime short-tail habitat, and it was perfect weather. It was perfect road conditions. There was nobody really on those roads to get squished, and we didn't even like. KJ takes pride in finding short-tail kings. Okay. Yeah, short-tail kings. Yeah, and he takes pride in looking for short-tail tracks. And he's like, dude, the humidity's perfect. The moisture in the sand on the road is perfect. Like, we should be seeing tracks, and we didn't see nothing. So, but there's always next time. They're out there.
That's right. Short-tailed king snakes, Lamprepeltis extenuata.
Right.
Extenuata.
Yeah. And
I saw somebody asked about Crocs too, by the way. From Zoo Tampa, we do have Indian gharial. We've got American alligators, and then we've got a Temistoma. In the past, we did have Orinoco and Philippine croc as well.
Very cool.
Seemed like a cool species. I remember seeing those at St. Augustine.
Yeah, they got them all.
So many of those species seem like a lot of fun, especially the the Siamese look really cool, and I'm a big fan of Cubans.
So you like the ones that'll chase you?
I mean,
or can't. The galloping ones. Man, that little Philippine was so fast. She was only 65 pounds, but man, she could go from her pool to the door in a second if she wanted to.
That's wild, man. Dude, everything that comes out of the Philippines is awesome. Snakes, the frogs, the
Crocs. Boyga are pretty choice.
Yeah, man. Choice. McGregori. Oof.
Oh.
Yeah, no.
Started on those.
Yeah. Dude, Henry just sent me, or it was Nipper. Nipper just sent me an EU classifieds out of Germany for a McGregori that was like the most rich, dark, passionate purple on the dorsal, and then the body was bone, or the belly was bone white. Crazy. But we digress. Back to the zoo. Temistoma, huh? So you guys just had the one Temistoma?
Yeah, she was a feisty one, I guess, back where she was. They had tried her with breeding, and she just whooped the male.
Ooh,
so she had to get separated. I guess they're in the wild. They're in like very seclusive peat swamps and things like that, and they're in like slow moving waters and stuff, eating monkeys and birds and all that cool stuff. Wow. So I mean, she is though one of the smartest crocodilians I've ever worked with. She is so cool, super chill. She's you read the stats on a Temistoma, and the biggest females are about 12 feet long, and she is 12 feet long. Oh, wow. She is huge. Wow. She's 12 feet. She's when she came in, she was about 460 pounds. So wow. she's probably between that and 500 pounds right now. But man, she is so smart. We've got her. She targets. She knows her. We have a duck quacker. That's her call. And so we do that, and she knows when to move. So she won't. We've worked with her. We do a lot of operant conditioning and training with her. We don't want her to body follow. We don't want her chasing us around the habitat, thinking that we're going to feed her. So she's learned that she's not supposed to come over by us unless we give her that quack, and then she'll come, she'll line up, she'll touch her target, and we can do all sorts of stuff. We can get her to come up on land. We can do A to B's back and forth with multiple trainers. She's just crazy smart. It's amazing how smart those animals are.
Very cool.
And I mean, they pick up that kind of stuff fairly quickly, right? Because I've heard like alligators in particular, it doesn't take long for them to realize after being fed, I think.
No, for sure. That's
where the food's coming from.
That's one of the reasons that if you feed them even accidentally, it's death for an alligator. That's what we talk about a lot too. You fed gators a dead gator here in Florida, because then they become a problem, because like somebody's out there cleaning their fish or whatever, or they're having a picnic and they're throwing stuff out in the water. They probably don't realize that every body of water in Florida has got alligators in it. So it's watching you, and it starts to learn, hey, those people, whenever I see people around, there's food, and they'll start hanging out. And eventually, if anybody directly starts engaging them, that's when they might learn, oh, if I go towards them, they drop the food, and then they run away and I get food. And that's how the fed gator becomes a dead gator.
Sad, man.
I know. They're so smart. It kind of works against them sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, as far as the general public, don't realize how smart crocodilians are as a whole. Like they see them, and I think it's because you don't. Obviously, they're not like cats and dogs where their expression is fairly obvious. Looking at them, you wouldn't think that there's a whole lot of thought going on between the eyes, but I tell people all the time, like, they're freakishly smart. Like you don't think they're doing anything, but those gears are turning, man. They're on point.
That Temistoma, we go out with her, and sometimes we just do a chat. And we've walked out there before, and we have a pool, and I was trying to figure out what she was doing. She was coming up to the side of the pool and looking over the edge. She had to come up a little bit. She was checking because I had a wood pole. She was checking to see if there's a target at the end of it. So then when I held it up so that she could see there was no target on either side, then she just went back down in the water and swam away. She was seeing if we were about to start a session or something like that.
That's crazy.
They're just so smart. And we don't think of them as they have studies kind of show they kind of have a lower frequency than we hear. They don't necessarily hear the super high tones. But they can hear human voices. And so our bridge, like, we'll just tell her good. And that's our bridge for her, is just a verbal cue. And we figured out for sure she could hear it because we were training one day, and I was filming, or I can't remember, it might have been Spencer was filming my coworker Jasmine, and she was getting Temistoma to come up on land. And halfway up into her transition to land, she said "good girl" in a really like normal tone. "Oh, good girl." And she heard "good," which is her bridge, and she instantly turned around and went. And if you watch the video, as soon as the word "good" comes out of her mouth, that animal turns around and goes back in the water.
Wow. That's wild.
They're so tuned in, and they're just listening. And you can tell if they're ignoring you because they have the ear flaps. So if their ear flaps are moving and they're open and they're responding to you, they're listening. If they close them, they might close them and then go underwater. That's when you're getting ignored and they don't want to hang out with you.
Wow.
They have moods just like everything else. And I know I was saying you like the ones that chase you, but they have different moods too, and they're usually super smart. And usually those like Cuban Crocs and stuff can be super well trained because they're just so hyper intelligent compared to some of these other species.
Yeah, the stuff I've heard about Cubans is just mind blowing, man. With the, I don't think there's any other species that I've heard people talk about in captivity that was more like off the wall than Cuban stuff.
Yeah, man. Especially like shooting out of the water and man, crazy,
wild stuff, man.
Yeah.
You work with Bruce for Crocs. I'm assuming you're talking about Bruce Schwedick, Jeff? He was asking. Bruce Schwedick has come by before. He came by for our Orinoco transport when they were shipping them out. I know he assists with a lot of transports and things like that. And he's come to, we have working group that we do with reptile keepers. It's the Florida Reptile and Amphibian Working Group, and we kind of use that for networking for a lot of this type of stuff. And he comes to some of those to kind of talk about his crocodilian center and stuff. But yeah, I think that's who you're talking about. That's the guy. Yep. Yeah.
And then Nate asked if you've ever noticed Crocs picking up on your vocal tone and mood.
Honestly, I have not noticed vocal tone and mood. I have noticed preference for individuals, or we had this one guy, Spencer. He's a guy who's been there for about 5 years now. And when he first started, the Temistoma refused to eat for him. And she would at first, she wouldn't even come up to him. Then eventually she would target for him, but she wouldn't take the food from him. Then she'd take the food and spit it out. Wow. Or sometimes she'd just go completely underwater and ignore him. So, I mean, they know their people, and they can show preference for people like that. And then once he was finally on her good side, they're working great together now, but there was a while that if he wore a hat, then she wouldn't deal with him again. So we figured out he couldn't wear hats. And now she's pretty good overall though. But I mean, they do pick up on little stuff like that. And I think there's a lot going on that we don't always know. Like there could be seasonal changes or environmental changes, or if they're hearing at lower frequencies, there could be communications going on between different animals that we just don't hear. I mean, you think about alligators in their water dance and the big bellows and things like that. I mean, like with elephants, they do bone conduction 3 miles away and they can talk to each other. Crazy. Like how far are these animals able to do bone conduction, especially with that vibration traveling potentially through water as well as air? So it's just you got to wonder all this stuff, and they're so sensitive to that stuff. I know our alligators will occasionally pick up or tune into like a plane flying over and start bellowing because they'll start feeling that vibration.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, I mean, they're queuing into different stuff than we are. We just don't always know what's going on.
That's wild, man. Awesome.
Something crazy too is our Temiscama is by our ambassador area, so they have a bunch of macaws and birds and stuff that mimic. And so we were doing her quacks, and all of a sudden we started hearing behind us quack quack quack. All these macaws. Like, well, that's gonna screw everything up. So, but she's smart enough that when she'd hear it, she'd look to see where the target was to make sure that person was actually calling her. So,
wow,
but smart animals, man.
Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, what's the timeline for them from the time you start training them with like completely blank slate to where she's at?
That's a really hard question because she's 47 or 40. She's late 40, so she probably has had some training in her life before this. And I know when I was at St. Augustine Alligator Farm for Croc School, they give us an alligator, a baby alligator, and we have to teach it a behavior by the end of the week or be working on it. So, I mean, those are blank slate animals because they've never, ever been trained. And you're talking expectations are in less than a week, you can have the animal learn something.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
that
goes to tell you, even with little guys like that, you can be taught. And I mean, it's not just crocodilians that can be taught. We were talking about Cyclura.
Yeah.
At the zoo, we've got a Cuban iguana. That's our only Cyclura right now. I'd love to get more. That's what we've got. The Cuban iguana was a stowaway on a boat from Guantanamo Bay in Cuba, and the boat landed in St. Augustine, and it was they called Fish and Wildlife, and it was picked up there, and I believe it was brought to Alligator Farm for a little bit, and they called us and said, "You want this Cuban?" So we got this. We said, "Sure, we'll help out. We'll take the Cuban in." And this thing was a wild little firecracker.
Wow.
Wanted to bite. I mean, he was a wild iguana.
Yeah,
he just went through some crazy relocation and trauma. I know we built him a nice habitat outdoors, and I said to him, do you mind if I work on training with this guy? I want to do it. And he said, "I don't care. Go ahead, do whatever you want." And so I started working on targeting with it, and I have the video somewhere. The first time I got that thing to target, or him to target, and it's an amazing thing. And now this animal, we can call it back and forth, and it's learned that if we touch down like this, it comes up and it touches its little tongue on your hand, and that's its little targets, and it comes around. They're just so cool. I mean, there's so much stuff that you can train.
That's awesome.
I know people are a lot of times trying to do some training with snakes.
Yeah.
I haven't. I've had a hard time. Some of it seems like scent baiting versus traditional training, but then you start seeing it more and more where these snakes are learning. So they are learning something. So I'm kind of wondering how far snakes can go in the future. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think there's definitely some species there that are much more cut out for it than others. And,
I think some of those apex venomous ones, like your kings and your mambas and things like that are highly responsive, highly reactive. No, not necessarily. Well, I guess they're reactive, but I just mean they're highly in tune.
Right.
I know they were talking about one of the zoos where just they got a light bulb and it was a slightly different color, and the cobra just sat and stared at it all day. I mean, they're so in tune to their environment. It's things like that can also provide enrichment and stimulating environments for them. I'm kind of wondering how many more reptiles we're going to see that we're going to learn can actually see way more into the UV spectrum, and that when we keep them without that, we're not just depriving them. Because I mean, UV is great for pretty much everything now, is what they're figuring out. I think, I don't know are you guys starting to keep UV on most of your species for snakes and stuff?
I have UV on some of my stuff, but not all of it.
Exactly. Some of it, but not all of it.
It's harder with some of the fossorial stuff to start seeing it, but then they're starting to see a lot more cryptic basking where you have it and they'll put the little leg out, and it just makes me start wondering, like visually, are they needing this for some of this stuff, for breeding cues, for environmental cues? I wonder if the UV spectrum changes throughout the year. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Throughout the day with cloud cover and whatnot. Yeah.
I mean, that's something Matt Most told me with the Jansen eye and stuff. He is convinced that UV, even full spectrum, I believe, when we were talking about it, he thinks that helps a lot on the breeding front, just in terms of either getting them going or getting the females developing what they need to develop to have healthy clutches and stuff. So
yeah.
But I found that mine will, when I turn on those UV lights, like in the morning, they'll definitely come out and hang out for a little while, and then they'll go back to their cork rounds and stuff. But they definitely use it. And I mean, without a doubt, there's, I see them out soaking it up. So
I am so thrilled with the advancements in collective herpetology in general. Just everybody and a lot of the cutting edge stuff is not just being led on the zoological side, it's coming from the private sector. And if there wasn't that private sector market, then this stuff wouldn't be available.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, like all these now most places, most people are buying their own UV probes. You know what I mean? Everybody's got the 6.5 Rs or whatever, and you can check your spectrums. You can check all that. You can make sure your bulbs are staying good for a long time. It's just awesome. The advancements. Most people want to start doing bioactive. And I don't know if you remember in the past how it used to just kind of be like, what kind of rug do you want to put down for your snake?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And now it's just like, oh, you guys were talking about BlackBox cages. Like the sizes have gone up. Nobody's like, hey, I want to do the minimum anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's just so rad. I think it's so awesome how far everything's going.
Zoomed gave out these little cards that it's a credit card, and it's like a purple logo, and it's got a sun, like a cartoon sun on it. And when you hold it in your hand, you look at it, it's just like this light purple card. And then if you put it under your UV bulb, whatever spectrum it may be, A, B, whatever, regardless of the power, it changes color like a mood ring. Yeah. And that's just a simple way to see if your bulb is still good. You know what I mean?
You know what it reminds me of? Did you ever, like, when you were a kid, get one of those T-shirts that would change color in the sun?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
I wonder if it's like the same kind of stuff. It's been around forever. We just didn't realize it.
Right.
New purpose for it.
But that's the thing, is that yes, the technology is irrelevant, but it's getting you in the mindset of knowing that this stuff does expire, and different spectrums,
and for sure,
trying different bulbs, and just going back to cryptic basking. So I've got the only UVB I have on snakes right now is my Rencals, and I have it vary throughout the year depending on the time of year. And even the dead of winter, when there's no heat lamp on, they're still basking in the UVB, specifically say 60 seconds after it turns on. Like it comes on, cool. They know it's coming, they'll come out, and there's no cryptic, they're just out in it. And it could be 65 degrees in there, they're just chilling.
Yeah.
So wild, man.
I keep mine kind of inconsistent. So some days I'll turn it on for like the percentum female in particular. And then some days, like if it's cloudy out that day or it's raining, like I don't turn it on, because surely that low pressure system, they'll understand, like, it's probably not the day for it. So I kind of change it up. I leave it on, I turn it off. Sometimes I'll go a couple days without it, and then I'll leave it on for a half a day. And I don't like just leave it on and then cut it off every day. It's I change it up and vary it up a little bit. And even then, like, that's when I see a difference in terms of, like, come in the morning, turn everything on, turn around and notice that female is perched up immediately under that UV light. And then, after 30 minutes, whatever, she disappears and goes hide
if
she's at. So
if you're doing that every morning at say 7 a.m., have you ever gone in there like 6:50 and seen if she's like ready for it?
I haven't, but I have the Wise camera that I need to set up. And
yeah, I'd be interested to see how many weeks or how many months it took her to realize, okay, 7 a.m. it's going to come on. It's 6:58. Let me get up in there and get ready for it.
But I've also noticed with the Jansen eye, like if I leave it on, if I leave it on all day and then turn everything off that night and then come in and turn everything off again or turn everything on again the following morning and leave it on, like I don't see the Jansen eye as much. So it's like they shelter themselves from it if it's
too
constant.
much. Yeah.
But it seems like if you really change it up a little bit, then I see way more activity in terms of them coming out, spending some time outside the hides, going back in the hides. It's really.
Well, I think they could potentially be storing the extra D in their liver, so maybe they just have like a time clock of how much they need to be basking, and they're just hitting that quota, and they can do it over a couple days, or they can do it all that one day.
Yeah,
interesting.
Or, I mean, it also could be very similar to us, where if we are at the beach and we decide to lay out in the sun, you get to a certain temperature, or your skin gets to a certain feeling, and you're like, you know what? I'm probably going to burn if I stay out any longer. Maybe I should put my shirt on. Maybe I should reapply sunblock, whatever. I'm sure they have something very similar in their own way.
Yeah, some sort of mechanism for that.
Yeah, I got enough of X, Y, and Z. Time to go back in the bush. But
that is something that I do hope people understand. I mean, sure, it's getting better now that people are doing it more and more.
Yeah.
But not just turning on the UV and leaving it on all day.
Well, and
I do definitely. I'm semi-paranoid about having them exposed to that constantly. So I'd like to leave it off for a day or two and then kick it on for half a day, kick it on for a day, turn it off again.
Well, providing options is pretty cool now too, where I think you're seeing that a lot more because people are offering these bigger cages. You get UV and thermal gradients as well. I know with our Komodo, because we were able to offer these juvenile Komodo a whole room, which is, pretty big for these guys. They come out about the size of a small tree monitor.
Yeah.
Or an adult tree monitor, I should say. But they, we have this huge log for them, and we have UV basking, and the way it worked out was the hottest point was just next to the highest point, so they weren't directly the same. The hottest point is not the strongest point for UV.
Okay.
And they'll actually kind of rotate through where they want to be. So they'll go, sometimes if they want to be hot, they go over to the hot spot, and then they'll go back and they come up to the strongest spot of UV as well, we've noticed. So they can kind of, they can definitely tell. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Something I've learned about anyone who deals with ultra or infrared light in terms of an IR illuminator or infrared lasers, there is, depending on the power of the device, you have what's referred to as splashback. And essentially, if I take an infrared, if I have night vision on my head and I have an infrared laser and I shine it at a carpet, it's going to make a dot on the carpet that only the night vision can see. We can't see it. It's beyond our spectrum. But if I hit a tile floor, or dare I say a piece of glass or a mirror or even water, you'll see that infrared beam shatter into pieces and splash back across whatever room you're in or whatever area you're in. And I oftentimes wonder, depending on the type of UV bulbs we're using and what substrate medium or the size of the cage, whether it be glass or PVC or wood or rock, how much of that ultraviolet ray is splashing and moving, and are they still being exposed to that radiation even though they're undercover or in a hide box or what have you?
Yeah.
So very interesting.
Yeah, you can kind of think about it too with the or if you get the IR meter, you can kind of move it around and you can see some of that sometimes where you're getting that even covered. They could in the shade, or if you go outside and you have one, you can walk around and you realize even in the shade you're getting UV.
Yeah.
Wow. I think that's become a pretty big staple for a lot of field herpers now is things like, temp guns and then UV readers and things like that.
That's awesome.
I know like when we went out to Texas, Burke had it all, man. He had, he had the UV meter. He had, humidity hygrometer type deals,
cool.
temp guns, all that stuff. He was getting as much data as he could.
And I'll tell you,
can he?
I was no. So say what you're gonna say. Sorry.
No, you first.
Well, I was probably maybe 25 or 30 before it clicked in my head. You can't take ambient temp with a temp gun. You have to have an ambient temp reader because the temp gun is getting the temperature of whatever you're pointing it at.
It's a surface temp.
Yeah, it's a surface temp. So even stuff like that, you know what I mean? Even if you're standing around in the desert with a mercury thermometer waving it in the air, I'm sure it's better than if you just had a temp gun.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's the things that you don't always think about.
Right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Scott said reflected UVI is still effective.
Yeah.
So when your guy is out there with all that stuff and he's checking the UV and the temperature and all that stuff, can he tell you if you're going to have a better or worse day based on certain conditions? Does he have predictable conditions because of that?
It comes down to the individual species, I think, as well as the time of year, because you could be in the desert and it's January and it's 40 degrees out, right? But you may still have a UV index of 8 because the radiation's still coming, but the temperature is still cold. So I really think it depends on what you're looking for in terms of species, and humidity plays a bigger factor than temperature per se, or wind conditions. Like, I mean, the guys where were they in Southern California, and it was booking crazy wind, and it was like a perfect night, but the wind, they thought it was going to ruin it. Meanwhile, all the rattlesnakes were moving because the wind gave them some kind of audible cover, or maybe it changed the scent patterns, pheromones in the air, who knows? But they were expecting it to be a dead night, because they're literally all wearing windbreakers. Like, what the hell are we doing out here? And all the rattlesnakes were moving. So
that's cool.
But yeah, I think the real reason why Burke has all those devices is for his own personal research in terms of his own personal herping and our friends herping, but really to get insight into the animals that we keep, because we have the care sheets, we have the guidebooks, we have the reference books, the book books, as Dr. Julinder would say. But it really comes down to what's out there, right?
Those are all starting points now.
Those books aren't going to tell you what the UV index is in Lajitas. Texas.
You can't look that up.
June. Right.
That's the hard part. Is I know I've tried to look before. I'm like, does anybody have what the UV index is in Komodo, or what what the Ferguson zones are in the treetops where the juveniles are basking?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's like,
or better yet, you're trying to get weather ideas for your Cyclura. And there's a weather station in Guantanamo Bay, but it's in the military base. Like, it's not in the foothills or the grassland areas where the lizards are,
Right. Exactly.
And even then, even if you're talking about like Texas, for say, when Burke had, all the stuff with him when we were out there, it's like there's still something you can take from that information and apply it to Australian, carpets and stuff like that.
And that's something that's being applied more in zoos as well. I know we're working with Coastal Plains Institute and a lot of other places for striped newt repatriation project.
Nice.
And it's the Coastal Plains is doing a lot to help with the monitoring. They're the ones who do all the monitoring in the field. And the zoological institutions right now are doing a lot of the breeding for release. But there's none of that data out there. You can't just plunk in Google, what's the alkalinity of these ponds out, and what's the dissolved organics, what's the DO, what's the, all this stuff. It's like,
especially
and we're starting to realize
fluctuate that much. Like, it's going to be fluid and it's going to change, and it's never going to be the
same. And they're ephemeral ponds. So is it going to be different when the season starts versus when we get to rains versus when it's stagnant at the end? And it's like, how much does the pH vary? Are we going to start seeing a huge plummet because of the amount of decomposing plant matter? It's like, it's crazy. So part of that has led into a lot more data being collected at the field sites, and that's translating to changes in the husbandry
Mm-hmm.
that as we're raising them, because we're trying. Yeah, so it's interesting. It's the same stuff that you guys are doing just for your private side, and zoos are having to do the same stuff to help with these programs. So it's
I think
important
about
stuff.
some of these species that we like herpetoculture has not figured out fully yet. And it's at this point, it's, we're working things down top to bottom, bottom top, every which way, trying to figure it out. Bolin's being kind of a good example of that. And it's like the thing we're missing could be so minute and something we wouldn't think of ever would have any sort of effect on them and their
Completely.
And whatever flips that switch for breeding and stuff. And it's like if we start getting more hardcore about that micro data, I guess, so you could say, maybe there's something there that's the biggest piece of the puzzle that we're missing, and it's also the one that we didn't think would matter.
Hey, Henry, you said there's a website that gives UV index, things like that, everywhere in the world. Is that at different times of day as well, or is it just like, are you talking about just the general kind of like how they give the UV index out here in Tampa for like the UV warnings? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I know there's also even something as simple as the weather app on the iPhone. If you have, obviously it's going off of a weather station, right? So here, I have several species that I keep. I have the locality weather stations in my iPhone weather app just because I'm that weirdo. So like
Scott said, it's general.
Okay, so
Scott's also drunk on Zima, he said, because he loves Zima.
He is drunk on Zima, that glorious bastard. So here, Luxor, Egypt, right? Yep. Luxor, Egypt. If I keep scrolling, all right, well, it's nighttime, so it says the UV index is 0. That wasn't helpful. Let's find somewhere that's daytime.
Nailed it.
Yeah, right. Actually, all of my localities are nighttime right now. But regardless, it gives you the UV index throughout the day. And obviously, it's going to be more accurate if you're at that exact time. And they can have a pseudo prediction or a fairly accurate prediction for the rest of the day to come. But it also is just at that weather station.
It's also just exposed to full sun, nothing with any sort of cloud cover. Or, most of the time, how often is everything exposed?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And Scott, although he is drunk on Zima writing books as we speak, he says that so him and his wife made what we jovially call the Elapid Bible. It is it is a brand new 21st century tome of elapid keeping husbandry.
You still need to get a copy of it.
Yeah, and it's
where incredible. Is it? Where's that?
You can find it from several different reptile book retailers in the States. I think Tom's Bird Feeders has it. I think Eco Universe has it.
It's on Amazon.
Is it on Amazon now? Okay.
It's
on Amazon now.
Cool.
All right, excellent. Or go to the Nature For You website in Australia and get it direct from the horse's mouths.
There is one left in stock on Amazon right now.
Okay. Well, and he was saying that they put the Ferguson zones in the Elapid book based on
that's cool.
Iridescence levels and activity. So that's pretty awesome. And I guess they're working on a new husbandry book, and there will be more about that in that book as well. So that's pretty freaking cool.
Cutting edge stuff right there, man. Modernizing husbandry as like every year it keeps getting better.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, being in the zoo side of that, have you noticed a trend at all where sort of the more professional sector is looking at the private sector in a more
positive way?
Manner? Yeah,
in a positive way.
That depends on if they're those free handlers or not.
Oh,
no, I think it varies person to person, and I think it varies on the people in the private sector as well, because there's good and bad eggs everywhere, and unfortunately, there's a lot of people who go the Florida man route.
Oh yeah,
and that's what you end up hearing the most about.
Of course.
But I think a lot of great stuff comes out of the private sector, and there is a very unfortunate trend that's happening across zoos in general, which is I think you guys have all noticed that everything's gotten a little bit more expensive to take care of.
Oh yeah.
Expensive to live, things like that. So there's a lot of collections. It's hard to say. Okay, there's a lot of animals in human care that are being drastically downsized, and you're seeing a lot less back of house projects because they're not seen. You know what I mean? They're not bringing people through the gate, so it's harder to justify, especially if you're working on paying for the lights to be on. You know what I mean? So it's
that's a real tough spot to be in.
Right. So that's happening across a lot of places, a lot of zoos, and I'd love to have so many animals that we could take care of, but I think you're gonna see some private sector stuff. You've probably seen it as well, where it's providing the genetic arc that zoos wish that they could fill for everything, but every arc has limited number of seats, unfortunately.
Right.
So I think you see a lot of that responsible keeping in like frog keepers and stuff, where they don't want to hybridize anything.
Yeah.
And imagine how many species could be protected if the same commitment went to ball pythons as went to, just think of how much space that is.
Yeah.
But it's not anything wrong with that. That's what people want to do. That's their right. I just think about that sometimes. So I think to answer that question is that people are starting to see that there's an important role on both sides. And as I was saying before, without lost you for a minute there. Without that progress that's being done in the private sector, the products needed to take care of animals in zoos wouldn't be created. You know what? That's the drive. Commercialism is the driving force in development.
Right.
Come back here. So.
And to think as far as technology goes too, man, like in comparison, we say it a lot, in comparison to aquaculture and like the fish hobby, like how far behind that curve we are. But I mean, give it another 5-10 years. I mean, maybe
I don't know about that anymore. It's slowly creeping up on. I mean, you're seeing a lot more automation, I think, on the reef keepers, but when it comes to lighting and bioactive is like almost like the reef tank aspect of implanted tanks. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Or planted stuff. I don't know. But
but you're also seeing in that genre, you're seeing more diversity in the enclosures and husbandry of fish that were previously just expendable pets. Like, for example, there's what we jokingly call neon tetraculture, right? Where now you have individuals who say, you know what, I can buy that 99-cent neon tetra from Petco and I can do a dark water tank where I've, extracted natural tannins and I've got the pH perfect and the right hardness for a particular river system in which this neon tetra from Petco could have possibly or originated,
Well, it's the dart frog thing. Like the animals are the decoration to the setup in a sense. Like obviously their care and stuff is gonna be at the forefront, but you know, that's what I came to find when I got into dart frogs was like, it's not about the frogs at all. Like the frogs are the decoration. Like the tank is the meat and potatoes of it. It's like the frogs are just the bonus, really.
Yeah. I didn't even think about how diverse fish tank culture has gotten, because I mean, you see people with all their shrimp tanks and, like you said, region specific tanks and all that stuff now. You're seeing that tentaculums and elephant snakes and all that stuff too. You start to see the bridging over of the aquaculture into herpetoculture.
Sure. And going back to speaking of liaisons between the private sector and the academia and zoo field, Mike Stefani just joined the group. Him speaking at symposiums as a private keeper with all these academics and all these zoo people, it is happening in a great way. We just have to have the right people like Mike Stefani.
Well, I know we've had a few times where we have questions about our animals, and some of the best people to talk to are the people who have been breeding them in the private sector for years. You know, I mean, they've got more experience with hundreds of these animals instead of just, you know, the 4 that we're using as a display. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That is something that will always make me giggle a little bit. Is, you know, you have zoos that have some super rare species of Bothriechis or something. They've been trying to breed them for 20 years, and it's like there's some dude in the middle of nowhere in like West Virginia or something that's cracked the code like 10 years ago, and he's got, you know, an army of them, and it's just that's what always just makes me giggle a little bit.
Yep.
There's always a guy somewhere that's just got it figured out. You know, you'll never know that he exists, but he's there.
There's always somebody out there who knows more.
Of course.
And Scott said,
"Got to find the right one to ask."
Bioactive is not the end game either. Enclosures must suit the inhabitant or make a bioactive and choose the appropriate inhabitant.
That's very true.
I agree. Yes.
For sure. Yeah. For sure.
Yep.
And that's just a trendy word that's just getting thrown around now too.
Yeah.
Because you got to still want, because a lot of times bioactive people are just like, you know, springtails isopods, but there could be a lot of microflora and things like that in the substrate that we're not even getting to yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, like some of my fossorial stuff.
Tetanus.
Yeah, right. Some of my fossorial stuff, I didn't add isopods. I didn't add springtails, but they showed up because I got leaves from some yard, or I got soil from my neighbor's house, or what, you know what I mean? And we don't think about it because we sift our hands through it and make sure it looks clean, and we know it doesn't have pesticides and fertilizers and whatnot, but there's zygotes in there that we had no idea were there, you know?
Yeah. The little fungus that required around all the roots out there in your soil. It's like, you never know. You just don't.
And I feel like the term bioactive is great, but it's a key word of bioactive, but we need like biosustained. You know what I mean? How long has your quote unquote bioactive enclosure been sustaining itself to the point where it legitimately is bioactive?
Okay, so we need a fish term for this. We need the cycled term.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like everyone talks about establishing the nitrogen cycle. We need my bioactive is cycled. It's established. It's self-replicating. It's sustaining. It's able to handle an influx of waste.
Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering, somebody's probably got a term out there. Somebody can tell me if they do.
Sweet Tea said, I heard the term bio-natural on a podcast earlier. It's like the gray area between naturalistic and bioactive, which I like that.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
A terrestrial filter. I like that. That's fun.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Because I don't consider like my setups that have plants in it, which is like the rhino cages, but that's a planted pothos. Like I don't consider that to be bioactive. I just like to have live plants in there because
I think to be bioactive, it needs to have some component where it's breaking down waste and, you know, replenishing,
self-sustaining
plants.
Yeah.
It needs the what was that Pauly Shore movie? The biosphere, biodome. There needs to be a biodome.
You're muted, Phil.
Damn it! I'm quoting Pauly Shore and y'all can't hear me.
Oh no, he probably did that on purpose.
Yeah, probably.
Cinematic masterpiece.
And I'll tell you, if Sweet Tea is who I think it is, they have some incredible, actually bioactive enclosures. So link up with us.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah.
And this here, I haven't talked about it yet.
Yeah.
This was when I went to Grand Cayman and I saw a blue iguana hatchling in the wild.
That's wild.
So that was it. It ran up a tree and I got a picture of it poking its little head out, and then I printed it on a giant canvas and stuck it on my wall so that I can just talk about it whenever anyone comes over. And then I put it on my window so that you guys can see it.
Awesome.
But anyway,
I
love it.
Man.
I mean, shifting gears, Jeff Frederick just asked, how about keeping Cyclura, your thoughts on captive keeping and your thoughts on hybrids as two separate talking points.
My thoughts on keeping hybrid Cyclura?
Just your thoughts on hybrids and then your thoughts on keeping Cyclura.
Hybrids have a place if you understand that that's not protecting the species in the long term if you just want to have this animal as a pet. Like I have a dog, my dog is spayed. I don't have that dog because I want that dog to help protect the species and to keep that species around. Now, if, for example, if you have Cyclura, certain Cyclura are so imperiled or they need protection and there's not a whole lot of them in the private sector, then I don't think it's responsible to hybridize because you want to protect that species, or that, who knows how many generations from now you might need to aid in a reintroduction program. And let's talk about this again. Blue iguanas, Grand Cayman, Lewisii, Cyclura lewisii. Their population was down into the low 20s.
Wow.
They actually flew a few animals from the US. Some of them, I believe, were zoos. There might have been a couple private sector. I don't know exactly how many came from where. But those animals helped with the breeding program, and that kind of broke the bottleneck because they were just at that tipping point where any fewer animals, they would have not been able to keep the genetic diversity high enough to hit a huge bottleneck and have the population potentially crash. So I mean, that can show you private sector, zoos, genetic arcs can be used to help these programs come back. So that's considered the most successful conservation recovery program of any species in the world, especially of reptiles.
Well, what was the decline of them in the first place? Like, what was the reason that they had declined in numbers that much to begin with?
There was a lot of development of their land. There was habitat loss, but I mean, if you're looking way out where they are, there's space where they could be away from them. But there's introduction of green iguanas.
Okay.
There was occasional roadkill or poaching, but a huge one. And it's a hard beast to overcome, as we've seen in the U.S. is feral cats and dogs. Feral cats, cats have a great place in homes. In homes, exactly. Granted, I don't know how you guys are gonna feel about that after you found out that lady in Oregon just got bubonic plague from her cat. So. I mean, but really? Cats, yeah, that was just in the news. I just read that. She's being treated. She's fine. But yeah, they think she got it from her cat. But anyway, the feral cats out there are a huge problem. And cats are part of the culture where people want to protect the feral cats. So, of course, they want the cats to be caught and not harmed and brought somewhere, things like that. But without those being removed, the numbers can't rebound because they eat all the hatchlings. Adult dogs can kill adult iguanas. There's occasional roadkill, especially because they started a program with green iguanas where they were paying people per green iguana they brought in. So, you see one on the side of the road, run it over. That's part of the collection. So it's unfortunate. So there's roadkill, there's all that stuff. Some of the protected lands that are needed got developed. But right now, there was that one clutch that Jasmine and I pulled up. You were talking about that. We were holding it.
Yeah.
Or we were talking about that earlier. Low 20 eggs, and that's how many iguanas were in the wild back in the early 2000s, and that's one clutch now, and they're having a near 100%. They had a 98% hatch rate. So I mean, that clutch would have been the whole population that used to be around. And so now, now that biopark next to them, I believe they've managed to control some of the feral animal population there. And you're starting to see hatchlings. and that's exciting. Especially
good.
this one, he had lasted for a while. So they need to survive, not just being hatching, but survive to be big enough to not be cat food.
Sure.
And to get to see one, that was wow. That was
well. I do think, going back to what you were saying, we've said it on here before. We'll say it again. The Steve Rinella cute and cuddly theory. If it's not cute and cuddly, nobody wants to save it, right? Or non-animal enthusiasts, they don't care about saving it, right? But I feel like the iguanas, because they are so charismatic, because they are blue, because they're big and impressive and, dare I say, cute, that is helping them a lot in that regard.
It's not just their natural charisma, it's the work that's been put in by the Blue Iguana Conservation Facility. They've done some great partnerships. They've done some great advertising, things like that, in order to instill that pride in the community that this is our animal, this is our story, this is our recovery. This isn't Blue Iguana's success. This is Grand Cayman's success.
Yeah.
And by instilling that
sense of pride, like ownership.
That ownership and pride in the community, that's how you make a successful program. They have been downlisted from critically endangered to just endangered, but it's hard to say whether the population can be sustainable, because they've done a ton of work to get these numbers up by breeding and then releasing bigger ones. But you're not seeing a lot of recruitment out there. So until that population is breeding itself and bolstering its own numbers, it's hard to call it done. The work's not done. And one of the cool things is, when I was out there, Luke Harding was running it out there. He's a great guy. He's actually out in Singapore right now working with a whole bunch of different zoos. I know he's doing stuff on Komodo. He's working with different turtles all over. He's doing really cool stuff. But when I was there, he was spearheading a lot of the projects to bring all that awareness. And I was going to go somewhere with this, and my mind kind of wandered for a minute there. But
no, I mean, that's
good. I was hoping if I talked for a while, it would come back to me what I was going to say.
Well, I think projects like that, where you have results and you're showing the public that you're getting the results, is a big thing too. Because I think there's a lot of similar programs in place where people, they're like, we're saving the species, but you never see any of the progress that's made. They just talk about it.
I remember. Can I say it before I forget?
Yeah, go on.
It was cool because you're walking around this place and you're talking about, okay, so which of these animals are here forever? And he said none of them. The goal is that if we ever hit self-sustaining population and that we get this program to be super successful, that we can shut this place down, and that every single one of these iguanas will be back out in the wild. It's like, that's the goal someday, is for all of these iguanas to not stay as breeders, but to go out. And so I thought that was just super cool way to look at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, the cat thing definitely sucks. I mean, I won't beat that dead horse, but just like with the berms and any other invasive, it's unfortunate. I'm not against culling by any means. Species that aren't supposed to be there were never meant to be there, because it's not the animal's fault. But I love cats just as much as anybody else does. Like, I have a cat, love to death. He's a terrorist, but he's great.
Yeah.
But
Addie said couldn't believe the amount of cats in Florida.
Yeah. I mean, like, locally here, the shelter does a catch, spay, and release thing. So we have these colonies of cats that are all fixed. And it's like, that doesn't really fix the problem, because those cats are still going to be terrorizing and killing everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, unfortunate. It's like, I hate to say it, but it's like, we need to cull them. Like, unless you're going to take them in yourself and do something with them, like turn them into indoor cats, which, good luck.
I don't think you're talking to the people who aren't okay with that right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think anybody who's probably listening to this has probably heard this before, and it's probably the ones who are telling all their neighbors to keep their darn cat inside. But it's just an unfortunate thing. It's that cute and cuddly thing, and I don't have a solution for it. I don't know who came up with trap, neuter, release, but that's just about the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, they do it here all the time. Like they go and literally take care of these different colonies. Like they have them, I guess, mapped out. And because there's a Walmart up the road from me, and there's a colony there, and I see them literally setting up shelters and like food bowls and all these kinds of things for this group of cats. And it's like, how much damage have they done just in that 100-yard area of space in that parking lot and stuff with birds and God knows what else. It's like,
I saw in the chat somebody asked if I thought the average keeper should or would be able to adequately take care of Cyclura, and the answer is no. You got to think if you're talking about advanced keepers, then yes, the people who are willing to commit the space, the time. There's so much space required, so much time required, so much money on vet bills, and if you can't keep it, you said not even outdoors. That's hard. I think of the average herp keeper is probably your person who's got 1 or 2 herps from a Petco or something like that. That's probably the more common side where you see 1 or 2 things. We're kind of like how there's people who have an aquarium, and then there's people who do it as a hobby. And once you start getting people who do it a lot more advanced in the hobby and are willing to commit the time and space, then yes, I think that you could potentially do a Cyclura. But general public and general people will not have the space or resources for one.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that's the way it is, but.
And then Jeff also asked, do you think that captive pure blue iguanas would eventually make it into the private hobby after successful repopulations for the sake of creating safety populations?
It's hard to say for sure. I don't envision that in the near future. There's just
too much work to be done.
I think you're going to see it at like something like Ty Park's place first, where it'd be like a bridge between a private sector and you'll start seeing at places like that first. But I don't think you'll see pures in the private trade for. Yeah, I don't see it in the foreseeable future.
What are the hybrids currently? Because I know it's Lewisi mixed with
Cuban
rhinos or Cubans.
Cubans.
Okay.
And they're actually supposed to be I think a descendant of Cubans. I think it was something like that. Some Cubans got over there. So like if they they had the tree of when they all kind of split off, and they think that one kind of split off of Cubans. But man, the blue one, when you see a true blue, holy cow, they're this color.
Yeah,
I was so excited when I saw it because I was like, man, that's Peter the blue dragon. That's his color.
Nice.
I turned your rhino into a blue dragon.
Rhinos are cool as hell, man. I had a neighbor at my parents' place. There was a vet that lived around the corner from them, and they had a rhino, and they kept it in like a big greenhouse type deal. And it somehow, unfortunately, either got stolen or got loose, and never saw it again. So that's such a cool lizard.
Cats in appropriate enclosures. I like that. I like when people build the catios. I think that's super cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
A portion of Lewisi that are pure labeled as hybrids. So that's interesting. Is it possible that some have kind of snuck through? I mean, that's always possible.
Yeah, there's definitely
things always happen to find a way.
Yeah, there's definitely pures in Europe. I've seen pictures like,
well,
and who knows? It could be stowaway stories, could be purposeful stowaway stories. We'll never know.
What is it? Nipper always says you can get anything out of the Czech Republic.
Oh, 1,000%.
I mean, people are still out there poaching stuff too. Unfortunately, I don't know if they're doing it in Grand Cayman, but like Fiji bandits, people are still out there trying to collect these guys, even though they need their protection where they're at.
Yeah, which is crazy because that seems to be something that, with the exception of the United States, are very easy to breed and everyone has them.
They're super fun. I've worked with them at the zoo. So Yeah, I think the population was around 55 Fiji banded iguanas in the whole U.S.
Okay.
And we had 18 or something at one point because we bred them like crazy, man. we had a ton of them.
That's what
they breed really well. They don't get huge. They're easy to care for, especially outdoors here in Florida. Unfortunately, the U.S. population, part of it might have come from Tonga, which kind of screws up the lineage on if they're fasciatus or bulla bulla. And so there's a possibility of a cross between a Fiji banded and a Lao banded, or Fiji crested and Lao banded, or whatever. So you're starting to, there's some of them are potentially hybrids. So it makes management more difficult in terms of
genetic diversity.
Do they have that potential to be a genetic arc if they're a hybrid that can never really be reintroduced? And then you're committing the resources to breed an animal that, like somebody was talking about hybrids, we're seeing that with Galapagos tortoises a lot too now, where you're starting to see more and more stuff turns out it's a hybrid. And there's limited seats on, so it just makes it a challenging thing to think about, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it also comes down to individual states and individual country laws, because I think a galop can't cross state lines. Any galop can't cross state lines without U.S. Fish and Wildlife licensing, right? Which, from what I gather, is simple. It's $100. You just have to have patience. But if it's a hybrid, you don't have to.
Oh. So
I've seen people that had, Aldabra, sulcata hybrids and God knows what. But
yeah, so you mean hybrid? They don't count it as a hybrid if it's two species of galop, right? They'll still require
I don't know, but I know that there are people who've got galops across state lines because it wasn't purebred. So,
it's very interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. They could be talking out of their butt for all I know, but
hey, I took that picture.
Look at that lizard.
Well, Jeff asked if there was pics of true blues.
Maybe I didn't take that one. That's a beautiful blue. That I've seen that guy. That looks like Peter. Is that my photo?
Yeah, that's your Instagram.
Okay. I was like, I think I might have taken that picture. Yeah, I've had some cool ones. That's an amazing. Yeah, look at the color.
Yeah, man, it's your shirt. That's awesome.
He's a special dragon too. He's not a good breeder. Turns out he prefers other boy iguanas.
Fair enough.
So actually, he's weird too because he's always in breeding blue. Normally they just fire up like that when they're breeding.
Okay.
But he tried to breed another male and it bit one of his peens off.
Oh, jeez.
So he's down to one, but he's still good for genetics. You just got to get him to breed.
Yeah.
But look at those beautiful eyes, man.
Yeah, the eyes are killer.
Fucking bloodshot eyes.
Beautiful bloodshot eyes.
No, but the contrast with the red against the blue.
I know.
Sure.
Yeah. They look like they've been on a bender for like the last week.
Yeah. The Ybor City, baby.
Oh, man. That's some good stuff right there.
Bite from one of those suckers would suck.
Oh, yeah, they could do some damage. But if you guys, if you don't follow Blue Iguana Conservation, check them out. You can also go out there. They have a program where you can do like a keeper for a day type thing when you're out there.
Oh, cool.
And they'll let you go. They'll show you. You get to clean habitats and meet the babies and potentially hold some. And I know when I was there, I got to help with a few releases too. They let me name one of the little babies after my kids. So they've got a little iguana out there in the world named after them.
That's awesome.
Hopefully it is a little breeder and helps make the next generation of iguanas.
Yeah.
Oh, but that is some of the most treacherous terrain you could ever walk on.
Really?
You guys know what karst stone is?
Yeah, I was saying, isn't it all rock pretty much?
It's rock, but it's a type of geologic formation where limestone erodes in a way that it makes jagged spikes.
Oh.
So you're walking on these like razor blades. There's one spot that they call Mordor because it looks like just the jagged rock work.
Really?
I know I had put some pictures up. I don't know if they're around or if I have a video up somewhere, but you can see it. You're just walking on. It's like you have to, when you're looking, you got to look for the tips, and you'll be walking on like where a couple tips come together, and that's what you're stepping on when you're walking through that. And if you catch your foot wrong, it actually will cut through your shoe. I know when I was walking out there, I barely grazed a rock and it put a big slice through my pants, and that was just from barely hitting it. So that would have been a little while back, but man, those rocks, and they take a little bit of time to get adjusted to walking around on. Yeah, I got all sorts of stuff.
I got a thing for alligator snappers, so I got it.
And then watch. Then he's sitting on a big alligator.
Oh,
that's awesome.
I like that one. That was a fun video. I love those guys, man. Yeah, they're
no
big.
fucks to give.
Yeah, I could tell. I love this one.
Bill
the
Bradley
shirt that
keeps
you
tempting me with them.
Oh,
He's like, I got one, man. You can. It's all yours. Just say the word.
Didn't somebody make a hybrid? Maybe. Oh, that's when I was out there. So maybe if it's not one of those, but that was releasing a big male. Oh, that's Luke right there, the guy in the blue shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Super nice guy. Yeah.
Show the frog. Show the frog. Got to show the frog.
That's not an actual frog. It's
it's not.
That's when I was in Panama. So that's a Panamanian golden frog.
Yeah.
They're pretty much extinct. They're extinct out there. They haven't been seen out there since 2009, and we breed them at the zoo. So I thought that was cool to find that. You'll find some stuff, with Panamanian golden frogs. Yeah, a lot of random stuff on there. You're pretty deep in there now, far back.
Spadefoots.
Nice.
Dude, that dude was just hopping around. I might have been with Addie on that one. I know she was running around my neighborhood with me looking at stuff. Fiddler crabs. Lots of hatching stuff. Go to the shows with those guys.
Right there, pick his nose a little
bit. that video on the left there with the gharial is all over the internet. I feel like that one. I get tagged in that one all the time.
So cool, man.
Yeah,
so
dude,
cool.
You just have that long,
so bizarre,
100 to 110 teeth in their mouth at any given time. Always losing teeth, getting new teeth.
I saw some video. I think it was last year sometime. There was some guy who was like stroked the back of. I don't think it was
yeah.
I paused it so I could see what it was. That was a Temistoma, a little Temistoma, and he got nailed. Yeah. I screenshotted right when he got bit and sent that to my team.
Nice.
You can see I love the gharial's teeth and stuff.
Yeah, dude, all the Fijis. Right there. Yeah.
What's that? Oh, the little golden frog.
Oh, there's the golden. Yeah. So cool, man.
Yeah, we've bred a lot of those at the zoo. I know we had 140. Me and another guy who had worked there had bred about 140 of them, and because you can get a lot from one spawning, one clutch, but you have to limit the number that you keep from each clutch. So we usually around 30 from each, but we've just this year. The other two members of my team, Spencer and Jasmine, each kind of led a breeding tub, and both of them were successful, and that's about another 60 animals there. So that's about 200 golden frogs that we've produced.
Wow.
Which is pretty awesome for a species that doesn't exist in the wild anymore.
Yeah. And what's the reason for them being extinct in the wild? Is it agricultural?
Habitat loss and chytrid fungus.
Oh, wow.
Aren't they? Yeah. Aren't they kind of the species that sort of spearheaded the whole chytrid?
Yeah, they were talking a lot about that stuff with the because it's spread through Panama, and they have kind of really accurate or pretty a good timeline of how it spread through there and just wiped out tons of species. And right before they were all gone, they went and collected some, and that happened to be all that's left now.
Wow.
Now we're cool. Talking Histrionica.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Way out of my tax bracket.
Lots of cool stuff. Big. I
mean, we gotta touch on the Komodos a little bit, because I feel like if we don't, people might get upset.
Yeah.
It's my brother's dog there. I forgot I put that up. Komodos are super smart, super awesome. And we were talking about the that Temistoma being super trainable. The Komodos are as well. I know the other day we went, and it was me and the other people, or me and my other two keepers, and we were she was out, and we were giving her a rabbit because she had just laid a bunch of infertile eggs, and we were trying to get her give her a little nutrients back. And so we put out a rabbit for her. She ate it real quick, and then she went back and she was running around out on the yard. And then there was a bunch of other guests out there, but the three of us yelled for her, and she came right over. We're like, come on in. And she followed us right into the habitat. Like she knows when it's us talking to her, she'll actually stop to come look at us while we're there. They know when we come up to the babies know us, and we come up to handle them. They can actually see us through the window, and they'll kind of look at us, and they know if we're coming in. They're just so smart. And they all have different personalities as well.
What's the incubation time on those?
It was just over 215 days.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a long one. 85, I think we had it at. 85 degrees. Required higher humidity than we thought. So we started them out a bit drier. They started to dimple, so we raised it up a bit. And once we managed to get the humidity under control, and talking to just other institutions and some people in the private sector about how they do a lot of their different monitor eggs, and yeah, we had success. 6 babies.
What was the final sex ratio?
3 to 3.
Oh, wow. Perfect.
So we actually DNA sex the eggs.
Oh, awesome.
So that was pretty cool. So
the egg after hatching, or with the animal still inside the egg?
With the animal still developing inside.
Wow. How's that done?
So set up essentially a light box so that you can see, when you shine the light through, you'll see the blood vessel. They use a very fine needle, and they draw kind of lines depending on where the light is, so that they can get that perfect lined up with the blood vessel. And then we actually were able to keep the light on and watch the needle go in and just draw. All you need is a drop, and then they can DNA sex it.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's really cool. So that's actually a part of the management strategy now for them, because, for example, if that was a bunch of parthenogenic animals, you'd have all males. Right. And it's not really improving the genetic diversity of the animals in the U.S. if you just have a ton of parthos. So
right,
you got to be really careful with the management, because how many Komodos can each zoo reasonably hold?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's another thing. There's there's a limited amount of space. So yeah, you got to think about that stuff. You can't just hatch every single egg that you find. And then now, especially, you want to have more females. I was just looking at Walter Offenberg's book from the 80s, from when he went to Komodo Island, and he was talking about how the ratio of males to females there was 3.5 males for every female.
Wow.
I thought that was pretty interesting. So
very.
Yeah.
How are when the hatchlings, are they fairly bold as when they come out, or are they pretty flighty like a lot of monitor species?
That's part of what I was saying. They have different personalities. So we've got one, his name is Dracus, and he comes right out. He crawls right up onto your hand, and then he just crawls all over you and does whatever. A couple of the smaller girls, though, they don't want anything to do with you. They might smell you, but they go and they want to do their own thing. So they all are a little bit different. We named one after Walter Offenberg. He was the one who did a lot of the original Komodo dragon research back in the day. He was actually the guy. He wrote a brief theory about the he kind of had a note about the bacteria potentially in there that we now have seen that is venom. So they're not. I don't know. Have you guys read about all that stuff?
Yeah,
I figured, but anyway.
For some of the listeners that are not familiar, why don't you give us a rundown?
So essentially back in the day, when they were looking at these animals, these Komodos, they'd ambush attack, they'd bite, and so they'd be losing a lot of blood, but then they'd get a really good sign of getting like sepsis or bacterial infections. And so the theory was that they had this really dirty mouth, and that the bacteria would be used as a venom. My favorite way that it's been put is substantial claims require substantial evidence, and there's not substantial evidence that there is a bacteria in there. But what they have found is, especially if you ever look in a Komodo's mouth and they open their mouth, you're not going to see tons of teeth because they have gums that come up. And when they bite, the pressure squeezes down on the gums, and that's what allows the venom in their duct to get squeezed out. Their teeth, they have, what is it called? Zyphodon or whatever. It's the sword tooth. So it's a hooked, serrated tooth. And the way it's lined up, the teeth won't catch with each other. So it does a bite. Their head, they've done studies on it. Their head is not designed for thrashing. The way it can withstand force is straight back. So their body is designed to grab, pull back, and make one giant, huge wound.
Wow.
So grip, rip, and then as they're doing that, they drip, they seep venom. So that venom, they've actually isolated it. They've done separate studies with it, and they found that it will lower blood pressure, will cause the animal to not stop bleeding. It doesn't allow clotting. And so it moves their kill rate up. So a lot of what they eat, they grab and they can kill right away. You're talking 70% of it's just mechanical action. Just that biting, all that damage, the blood loss, they can kill things and eat it. That venom potentially adds another 15%, moving them up to like an 85% aggregate kill rate, which makes them one of the most successful predators in the world. So it's just crazy. So we're starting to see now more and more evidence, and I don't even think it's really a debate anymore. Everyone pretty much knows they're venomous, and the only reason that people say it's a debate is because they don't want to fight with people if they don't want to believe it. It's hard because people are looking at them and they're like, oh, well, Komodo dragons potentially have really good healing properties. So they were looking at their blood for things like potential new antibiotics. Okay, so you're looking at it for antibiotics. If they're so good at getting bacteria, how are they going to have such a dirty mouth that harbors bacteria? You can't have it both ways. Their body can't be good at fighting bacteria and good at growing bacteria. So it makes much more sense when you look at them that they're causing a lot of damage and they have a venom. Also, if you ever watch one eat, they are incredibly clean. They'll even take breaks sometimes while they're eating to go wash their face or wipe it off. It's interesting. They're always cleaning up. They'll rub their face off. I mean, there's times that they literally are covered in animal feces because they're in there, but overall, they're very clean looking. You're not seeing food stuck in their teeth or anything like that.
Are the teeth grooved or have a fuller like a Gila monster or no?
They do not have any grooves, or they do not have any ducts. Here, sorry, hold on. I got to figure out how to prop you up. losing things. I'll just hold you. They have the serrations on the front, and if you look on the side of the tooth, it actually has like lines coming from up in the gums all the way down. So it does seem like it's grooved to assist with it, but it does not necessarily have straight up channels.
Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah.
I don't remember what institution it was, but they took 2 like T-bone steaks and they put them on paper plates.
Yeah, I saw that recently.
Yeah, and I guess they had one that was they were both exposed to ambient air for the same amount of time. One T-bone was just a thawed out.
Let me see if I can find it. I just saw on Instagram the other
day.
It's on Animal Planet. I actually just pulled that up the other day because I saw that pull up. I can't remember what the show. It's hard to find. You might be able to find it.
Okay.
But the guy bites it himself on one of them, and then the other one he injects. I have no idea what the paste is though, or how he got it.
I heard that it was some kind of like zoo facility or whatever, and they basically took a popsicle stick of Komodo spit and just lathered it on the piece of meat. But we could be talking about different things. I don't know.
I saw it on a TV show that they had done it, and it like the Komodo one looked like they had put a ton on it, and it basically melted.
Yeah, it was like liquefied in like 4 days or whatever.
Yeah. It was cool.
Very
cool.
Very cool.
So I mean, there is definitely something going on there. I mean, we all have bacteria in our mouth too, so I don't necessarily think like a lot of the studies they've done, they haven't found anything crazy in terms of bacteria, like anything that could be used in a weapon fashion.
How do I phrase this? If they've isolated the specific enzyme and are deeming it a venom because of its physical properties and attributes and whatnot, is it something that is it like per se specifically a myotoxin, or is it just it's a Komodo cocktail, it's its own thing?
I can't tell you for sure. You got to look up Fry. Fry actually has done a bunch of papers on it, and I don't want to give an answer that I don't know is.
Yeah, the only problem is Fry stuff is unreadable for the standard folk.
He did a really awesome talk about 2 years ago where he kind of broke everything down and talked about it. I'll send that over to you. You can check it out.
I'd love to see it. Yeah, because I have his book and his venom book, and it is fascinating, and it's huge, and it has so much information, but it's literally
I need to get that one
unreadable if you don't have a
gobbledygook.
Yeah, it's unreadable. Yeah. So,
but he breaks stuff down really well. He talks about, for example, the water buffalo and how everyone always likes that awesome example of the water buffalo where they bite it, they wait for it to die, whatever. And he said, first of all, water buffalo have only been there for 300 years. So how could they be part of the evolution? Second, they've done tracking of the animals that do the biting versus the animals that do the eating, and none of the time is the animal that ambushes and bites the one who actually gets to eat the dead carcass.
Really?
So his how did he say it? Nature is not generous. It doesn't give gifts like that. So it would not, there is no evolutionary advantage for a Komodo to do that, to give other animals food. So that would not be a factor for it, and because you're not going to be promoting your genetics by feeding all these other animals. That was part of his reasoning behind why that wasn't really making sense. Oh, that's cool.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
But I mean, if you look at this book by Offenberg, that was such a small part of it when he talked about that, and his all the information in there, the amount of research he did on that island about Komodos, it's outstanding. It's a phenomenal book. And that's one of our Komodos we named Offen. His family actually came in. So we named one Offen after Walter Offenberg, just because he did lay that foundation. That was back when, it's so weird to think about a time that people didn't all know about Komodo dragons.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible.
There's paperwork from 1912, I think, when the people were first discovering that this Komodo dragon even existed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, the locals all knew it as the aura, but like, it just blows my mind how short of a timeline we've been learning about all this stuff.
And like, imagine being on one of those merchant vessels or a military, a colonial military vessel, and you happen to stop at this island because you got to let your guys stretch your legs, and maybe we'll see if there's inhabitants, or maybe we'll see if there's a buffalo to eat because we've been eating hardtack for 6 weeks or 10 weeks. And you get to the beach and there's dragons.
Right. And they're in the ocean, and they're on the
swimming.
beach.
Oh yeah, and they're drooling in fear.
They're just ambush predators. So you're at that point, you're food. You know what I mean?
Just imagine that. Oh man, it's like we've talked about this before in here, but there's a paper from I guess the 1640s of right before they did Jamestown settlement in the New World, as they say. And I guess one of the boats that landed, somebody from Jamestown writes, we landed on the beach, shall be called Virginia, and there were snakes with rattles on their tails on the beach. And he basically describes timber rattlesnakes on the beach. And it's like, imagine being the first person to see that. Imagine being the first person to see a 12-foot dinosaur drooling, staring at you, licking its chops,
Yeah, dude, that would be crazy.
Crazy.
And the bacteria thing always just kind of never made a whole lot of sense to me, especially when they're showing, buffalo. And I'm like, that's really not that effective if it takes that long for something to die.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, what dies quickly from a bacterial infection?
Yeah.
Not a lot.
No, it's just not a thing. But, a big gaping wound and some venom, that can do it.
Sheer trauma, sure. I'll that I buy, but
yeah,
the
bacteria thing was always kind of, that doesn't seem.
It was so cool growing up. Are you serious? You can't, you can judge it now, but like, that was just so cool. I remember watching all those videos and being like, yeah, bacteria.
Yeah, and it's always the whole dirty mouth thing, and they always show the one dragon yawning, and like the spit is like in the movie Alien. The movie Alien where the drool is touching the top and the bottom.
Yep.
Yeah, menacing.
It's funny when they get real excited and you start to see that. And just drools hanging out of their mouth
like a bulldog.
Now, all right. So since we're on the topic of drool, is that when you see the dragon that has like the drool hanging out the side of its mouth, is that just their saliva because they're excited, or is that actual venom?
I would say it's more likely saliva, because I can't say this for sure because I haven't done the studies on it, but I believe the pressure on the gums allows for the actual release.
Yeah, just like a Gila monster.
Yeah.
It's like,
so if you don't have that pressure, then maybe there's something in there, but more likely you need to apply pressure to those gums.
Yeah.
Rip and drip, baby.
Do you know how closely are croc monitors pretty closely related to them? Are they
monitors in general? I know laces and stuff out there are. I don't know how closely they're all related, but there apparently was some the megalofauna out there that were the giant lizards all over that whole region of like Indonesia, and so many went extinct that it's hard to tell the exact lineage on everything.
You just see like the head structure of croc monitors in comparison to like Komodos, and they're just very
and
weird sort of cut. Like
if you look at the teeth too, though, they've got a little pointier, probably because they're grabbing like birds and stuff for the croc monitors, and that tail. Oh my gosh, that tail, man.
Yeah.
But the intelligence, they're up there too. So it's hard not to look at a monitor and realize that it's looking at you and thinking about something.
Absolutely.
Say either O'Shea or Austin Stevens had an episode of their show where they were looking for croc monitors. I can't remember which one it was. I really wish we could get O'Shea's stuff, like those episodes, back. We need to start a petition or something. And
I mean, I asked him flat out, and he was like, "Yeah, it's all production company stuff." It's just
what if we all pitch in like $1 and tell this production company, if we can get enough people to do it, be like, "Look, we'll buy this if you will release it."
Well, I'm sure if the production
throwing a buck.
Yeah, if the production company or the producers or whoever knew the demand, I just think they probably don't realize the demand's there. You know, especially since the footage is really, it's very 90s. You know what I mean? And by today's standards, it probably would not be a desirable watch, with the exception of our community.
You say that, but they have like every episode of The Twilight Zone on Netflix at one point.
Yeah, but that's different, man. It's fiction and it's classic, and more people are going to watch The Twilight Zone than a show about animals where he doesn't always find them. You know what I mean?
Reality is Komodoensis are Australian. They went west. There's a lot of good Nature for Youth throwing out a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. Priceeye and Komodoensis are sister species with various branches a little earlier. Salvadori are close, but still way off.
Yeah, Scott knows a thing or two about lizards. He wrote a couple books.
Let's get a Kickstarter going for that shit Jeff said. I'm telling you, man, you came at them with the right amount of money. I bet you they'd do it. And they're like, we're not going
to buy anything, right?
Now. That's right.
Yeah.
Everything's got a price.
Herp keepers aren't usually the ones that come for a lot of money, though.
True.
That's what I'm saying. If we get like 200,000 people to throw in $1.
Everybody. You just need everybody.
Everybody.
Well, it's 4 a.m. in London, so in the morning I'll message him and see what we can do.
Give us some email addresses or something. Let's start just bombarding them.
Yeah, right. Spam him.
It's like Christmas with the Cranks when they all want Frosty.
Oh, jeez.
Give us Frosty. Just give me a snack pack.
Oh, good stuff, boys. Good stuff.
Phil, get me a bunny number. Jeff said.
I'm on it, Jeff. I'm on it. I seriously, I'll text him in the morning.
Stefani said he has mainland Sulawesi Togianus that look so much like a small Komodo. He said 10-pound monitors.
Wow, super cool.
Scott said because that'll go down well. Emailing them, bombarding them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, it's all right. If I message him, he'll respond rapidly. If I email him, which is what he prefers, ironically, it's usually at least a week before I get a reply. So
everybody breaks, bro. It's biology.
Yep.
We'll find addresses, email addresses, phone numbers. We'll hunt them down.
Oh, man.
Well.
All right, guys. I think we're hitting my bedtime.
We are at the 2-hour mark.
We are.
This has been good. It's been great.
Yeah, it's a great episode.
Enjoyed it.
This is super fun. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, made it happen. Are you going to Daytona this year?
I am planning on it. We'll see if are Chris and Addie still there? Are they still going to invite me this time? They usually invite me, so I usually go hang out with them. But yeah, hopefully I'll see you all there.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be awesome.
It's the one show I refuse to miss at this point. So
Yep.
Adeline said, of course.
Heck yes, guys.
Oh,
all right. So we do anything here? Or you just kind of sign off.
We just sign it off. This episode was brought to you by FulviusApparel.com. Check it out. Use code THN to check out. Get 15% off your order.
15. Yeah, giving this whole story away.
Lord. 15% off your order. That is the exclusive discount code for THN listeners and viewers like you. BlackBoxCages.com. Also, use code THN to check out. Get 10% off your order there. Get yourself a rack. Get yourself a cage. Get both. Get one or the other. They're going to be great. You're not going to be disappointed regardless. Tax season is here. Drop those dollars. You gave the government an interest-free loan. You might as well use whatever they give you back for something awesome.
like these videos that you're going to be donating to buy.
That's right.
Exactly.
Economic plan. Everyone donates 10% of their tax refund.
That's great.
That's how we buy back the show.
That's it.
Back. Coldbloodedcaffeine.com. Check it out. Get some coffee. Wake up. All that good stuff. Puget Sound Pythons, the Pacific Northwest. Jeff and Kendra, awesome people. Give them a follow on Facebook and Instagram. Flippin' 10 is happening Thursday.
Nice.
So, that'll be live. You can catch that here. It's going to be episode 2. I don't know if I'm actually going to be there watching because I think Chris and I might be recording a Corn Stars episode. I don't think we've got anybody locked in yet for that, so we're working on that. But
wow, 2 THN episodes in one night.
I know.
Wild.
This is what happens when Jake's like, "Hey, what if like once or twice a month me and Sky do a thing?" I'm like, "That's perfect because now I can either take the night off or I can do something else. I can do ChondroCast or whatever." So
yeah,
it works out. So we'll be back later this week. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.